Welcome to the Finding the Magic podcast, where books come alive. I'm Tricia Copeland, a fiction author and host of this show. If you love books, finding great reads, and hearing about the story behind the story directly from the authors, this is the place for you. Whether you like fantasy, science fiction, dystopian, or romance titles, I think you'll find something to love in my playlist. Listen in to discover something magical about a book or two today.
Hi, Jeremy.
Hi there. How you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for being here today. We have J.S. Gold. He's a best-selling author of Jewish fantasy. So I am ready to know all things about the Sanhedrin Chronicles. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, Sanhedrin. It's like potato, except
Okay.
both kind of work here. My pronunciation is Sanhedrin.
Hedron. Okay. Thank you for that
Hmm.
pronunciation guide. Jump in. Tell us about your world, your characters.
Absolutely. And thank you again for having me here today. Yeah, so the Sanhedrin Chronicles is a Jewish fantasy novel that published last November. And it's really began back in 2018 in terms of the thought process in its creation and the actual writing of it. And 2018 is not arbitrary. It's the year that Black Panther came out in theaters. And yeah, and I know some people might be listening, like, okay, it's a Jewish fantasy. Why might Black Panther have to? What does that have to do with the Jewish fantasy? Black Panther was a revolutionary movie for a lot of reasons, but I thought one of the most important was that it was a movie about Black culture and Black questions, and it wasn't just a movie that featured a Black superhero. It actually dove into preoccupations within the Black community across the entire Black diaspora. And so, in a similar vein, we had seen Jewish superheroes before, but we had never seen Jewish questions being brought to superhero fiction, Jewish superhero fiction. So there were far fewer stories about what it actually meant to be Jewish. And so I set out on a journey to say, all right, it's going to be a Jewish superhero. It's going to be prideful. It's going to be empowering. It's going to be a kick-ass, like heavy metal Jewish story, but with themes and questions that are not necessarily particular to Jews in the sense that other people couldn't enjoy them, but particular in that it's the milieu of the Jewish mind. It's like what's going on in the Jewish conversation. And the hope was not only would the Jewish community latch onto it and respond to it with pride, like the Black community did for Black Panther, but that non-Jewish audiences would also see the universal in the particular, right? So there are these themes that run through the Jewish community, and I think one of the amazing things about the response to the novel has been people who are not Jewish who are like, oh my God, we have something very similar in my community. We have we have the same preoccupations. So that has been such a wonderful experience to see it branch out beyond just the scope of Jewish lives.
I was gonna say now I'm even more intrigued and I want to read the book.
Yeah,
So
yeah. It's been overwhelming, to be honest with you. It's been about 5 or 6 months now since release, and I'm just like, yeah, this is you when you write something, you have faith that it will resonate with people, but to actually see that manifest has been a blessing. It's been quite a journey so far.
that's great. So
Yeah,
talk to me about the setting, about the characters, the world. Who
sure.
who who are the players here?
Yeah, sure. So, those who are well versed in biblical study will know that the Sanhedrin are an actual historical group. They were a Jewish order of judges in the ancient Jewish kingdom of Judea at around the time of the Roman Empire. In my story, the Sanhedrin did exist like in our world, but by night, they also were imbued with magical abilities to protect the world from demons. So you had a judge by day, demon hunter by night, and so that brings us to modern day New York City, where a secular Jew who's kind of abandoned his Judaism, his name is Arthur Rose, he starts to see these shapes in the dark one day. Seemingly out of nowhere, he starts to see these demons crawling from behind alleys and from behind the shadows, and he finds out that he is indeed a member of this ancient lineage tasked with defending humanity from demon kind. And that the magic he is the inheritor to is a Hebrew magic. Oh, hi there, a
Yeah,
cat fan
that's
here.
my cat. Talking about demons.
Yeah, yeah, right. He, she.
Nothing like a black cat to like
I've got
impose
two.
on your
I've got
day,
two.
right?
Yeah, I've got two. I know. But anyway, so he finds out he's part of this ancient order of demon hunters, and it's a Hebrew magic system. So they base their spells off of Torah, and off of Scripture. There are Jewish angels in there. There's of course the demons, and of course adventures ensue. Right? He finds out. Well, why didn't I know about this? Why didn't my father tell me that I was from this line? Where is my father? You have like the classic hero's journey happening for a character. But I think what sets this book apart, not just from its Judaism, but from in terms of other story structures, is that it is the chosen one narrative. It is very much that traditional Campbell hero's journey, but it's also acting as a story about one man reclaiming his Judaism. So that's the final question of the book: is how does a man who has pushed his Judaism at arm's length, how does he reclaim that for himself? And again, that is, that's something that's really resonated with people as well.
Yeah, that's neat. That's a neat. So it sounds very contemporary urban fantasy like. Am
Yes,
I right about that?
that's correct. It would be classified as urban fantasy, correct?
Okay. And it sounds like an adult character, definitely, but how would you rate it as far as like PG-13, R-rated?
Yeah, yeah, I would say PG-13. I think the technical classification would be new adult. So we're talking about like 18 to 25 is prime range, even going down to 17, 16, 15 year olds, middle of teenage years. You're right in the sweet spot there. You get a little younger than that. There is a little sexy time every now and again in the book. There are some curse words. There is some blood and gore. So you are going to see some slightly more adult stuff in there, but for the most part, it's pretty PG-13. Even the sexy time stuff is like fade to black, right? I don't,
Right, yeah.
we,
But
we, we
normal
got demons to
people
hunt. We
stuff,
don't got
yeah.
time for it.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah, exactly.
yeah, in most even in like horror movies, I mean, people have lives. They fall in love, right? Or at least fall
Exactly.
in lust every once in a while.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, our main character, Arthur, one of the main subplots is that he has an ex named Lynn, and Lynn is Jewish, and she wants him to come back to his Judaism. And the reason that she's his ex is because she wants to see him return to his Judaism, and he has very internalized negative opinions of his own Jewish identity. And she says, listen, like I can't be with you if you're going to think this way about who I am and who you are. And that's a huge subplot that runs through this. So there is a bit of a romance angle as well.
That's always great. And so is Arthur the only one with these powers, or does he know of, I mean, it's obviously it sounds like it's passed down through his family, but
Yeah,
but the Sanhedrin, you said there was a group of these people. So
that's right.
are we gonna, you said this is the first book in the series, right? Or is he gonna
Yeah.
find others like him, or?
Yes, of course. So what we find out is that this is passed down through lineages, through blood, and each generation kind of has to negotiate. Do they tell their next in line of this heritage at their bar mitzvah? Do they tell them when they're an adult? Do they tell them when they're a kid? Because of course, it can be very traumatizing to when you're 8 years old to be given this second sight to see the preternatural demons and magic. It can be very traumatizing to do that at 8 years old, right? And so every generation has to negotiate it. Arthur's father never told him for reasons I won't get into because I don't want to spoil too much. But you, the reader, do come to find out that there is an organization, a branch based in each city around the world for their operations. And the current iterations of the Sanhedrin in each family are part of the order when we
Oh,
meet them, right? So
interesting.
yeah, and so you meet like this for instance, there's the Nasi, which is the head of the order, based off of the actual historical Nasi, which was presided over the Sanhedrin. She is an Ethiopian Jewish woman. She's a member of Beta Israel. If readers are not, or excuse me, if viewers are not familiar, Beta Israel is simply Ethiopian Jews. They are a Jewish community that goes back just as far back as any other. they had been broken in many ways in contact from the wider Jewish community for hundreds of years, and then in recent times have been brought back into the fold with a migration from Ethiopia to Israel. So you have characters like that. You've got a Hasidic Jewish teenager named Zvi. That's Arthur's, I don't want to use the word sidekick, but certainly his one of the pals that he meets. So you have a secular Arthur and a more religious Zvi who come together to fight crime and fight the demon crime. And let's see, and I talked about Lynn already. And of course, then there's other characters like Levi, right? So you have a soldier, an American soldier who served. He did a few tours in Afghanistan and Iraq, and his powers actually manifested when he was on tour. And because demons grow out of human sin and human depravity, wartime, as you might imagine, is not the best place to be dropped into somebody learning of demons for the first time. Yeah. So we have a lot, there's a lot of that going around, a lot of different themes, a lot of questions brought up by these different Jewish characters who are all revolving around Arthur and part of his journey.
Interesting. Yeah, so I'm guessing you don't call them witches, so they just have are they called Sanhedrin?
They're called Sanhedrin.
That's what they call themselves, but they have magical powers. So
yeah.
Sorry, I'll just say witch for a minute because I write about witches too, or I write
about there you go.
Too. But so I kind of did a little bit of the same thing. So my witches were formed by the creator. I made it non-secular, but the creator to protect the humans from all the evil spirits. So it's kind of the same. I didn't put the
we're vibing
on it, but very biblical in that the magic is passed down from the parents to the children, and they know their purpose in the world is to protect the humans from all these evil spirits that may lurk around them. And so I was relating to that kind of.
We've got some synergy here. This is very nice.
Right. Yeah. So and how does it happen? So do their powers come at different times in their lives, or it can happen anytime?
So there's two ways, right? So the automatic way is if you're part of this lineage, when your parent who has the power before you, when they die, it automatically passes down to you. Now, for obvious reasons, many Sanhedrin will choose to prematurely share the power with their children by undergoing just a ritual. It's not very involved, but basically you speak some Hebrew, there's a bit of chalk on the ground, a little bit of, an occult thing, and then you too are granted the sight and the ability to perform magic before your parent dies. But again, Arthur, our main character, not only was he not given magic or given the sight by his own father, who should have given it to him, his own father sent him away when he was young. His father is Hasidic, and he sent him out of the Hasidic community for reasons I will let the reader enjoy. And he didn't even tell him that he was part of this lineage. So you have a main character who's a complete fish out of water in this first volume.
Okay, but talk to me about his mother, because the Jewish faith is passed down from the mother, right? Where is his mother?
Where is his mother? So in the story, there's a lot there. I will do my best to not spoil anything, but
don't spoil it.
I won't spoil too much. But needless to say, his mother is, when we find Arthur, his mother is out of the picture.
Okay.
And there are revelations as we go about what happened to her. The nature of his lineage through his mother's line, and how that mixes with his father's lineage of being Sanhedrin. So you definitely you're thinking the exact same thing I did when I was creating the story of like, okay, that's the dad. What's going on with mom?
I have several Jewish friends, and it's interesting to me because I became Catholic, and one of the people that I kind of modeled myself after, or I was inspired by, she became Jewish. And so that was very interesting. So I know I was raised Christian, but kind of do a lot of research and have lots of friends. So so it was that's why I was mentioning that. But
well, it's interesting you use the phrasing of became Jewish, because according to a lot of strains of rabbinical thought, convert are some of the holiest Jews out there, right? Because to go through that process and to make it known, your Judaism known to the world, the way of thinking about it is they were always Jewish. They have just come home, right? Their
Oh,
soul has just
interesting.
come home. Yeah, which I think is very beautiful. I think it's a very beautiful way about thinking about conversion.
Yeah, that is very beautiful, and it's a lot of work, so kudos.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yes,
absolutely.
and but when you were talking about like the Jewish, him having the negative outlook of his Jewish
Yeah,
heritage, I'm like,
yeah.
I hadn't heard that in relationship to Judaism before, but
Mm,
I know for like me coming into the Catholic Church, a lot of the
hmm.
people that had been Catholic all their lives, and they talk about Catholic guilt, and they're like, I have adopted this Catholic guilt, and I had
Right.
none of that because I didn't grow up that way. So I saw the
Mm,
religion from a different viewpoint,
right.
and all the teachings from a different viewpoint. So I think sometimes when you're new to something or maybe coming back to something, you don't have a lot of those preconceived things. And
Right.
maybe
And to your
hopefully,
point,
I don't know if authors rediscovering that through different eyes, maybe.
yeah, yeah, and I mean to that point, you know, when Arthur in his journey, when he comes back to his Judaism, it is very hard, as you mentioned. He has a lot of baggage from his childhood, and specifically those negative thoughts come from this idea that when he looks at the story of the Jewish people, he only sees losers in the traditional sense, in the actual like the losers of history, those who are constantly killed, defeated, vanquished, segregated, right? The Holocaust, um, and the pogroms and the revolts against Rome, and on, and the Inquisition, on and on it goes back. And so he has internalized a very particular brand of insecurity with his Jewish identity, which is weakness. He has a preoccupation with, he's kind of a nerd, he's kind of like us, because he has a preoccupation with power and myth and warrior culture. And you know, he loves Norse culture, he loves anime, right? Because he's latched on to this very myopic understanding of strength, of martial strength, and of defending oneself. And he doesn't see that same pride in his own Judaism. And that is his main barrier. So he enters this world and he's like, wait, Jews can be cool? Like Jews, right? Like Jews can be heroes like this? I've never seen this before. I don't believe it.
Well, and I think that's a little bit of, I don't know. I feel like that about myself sometimes. Like I
Oh,
think
yeah.
that is can it's kind of a theme sometimes of some people's personalities that they just don't realize their own capability or don't
That's
see
right.
themselves as capable. And
Right.
maybe every person goes through that in different aspects of their life or maybe at different times in your life. Certainly when you're that young adult person and coming into
Yeah.
like what are my strengths, what are my good attributes, what's going to help me
Right.
carry me through this life, and what's going to help bond me to people, all of those new things that you're discovering at that new adult time that you're talking about. So
Right. Yeah, it's a really good story in revelation about oneself, and to your point, meaning making through looking back at your own history and heritage, right? Because if you're a new adult and you're in that position where you're cobbling together your identity, you're looking backwards, and you're trying to make sense of this heritage that you've inherited. And Arthur looks backwards and he doesn't see anything he wants to bring with him, and so the journey for him is to kind of understand that actually no, like there's a lot of cool shit going on here, you know what I mean? There's
yeah,
plenty to take.
yeah, and you could take that and make it your own too, right? And
Yeah, of
right.
course, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I would imagine with Catholicism it's the same thing, right? It's this idea of there are some parts about the traditions that I negotiate, and there's some parts that I think are very integral to the, you know, the way that you think about the world.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's so cool.
absolutely.
Yeah, I'm definitely getting the book. I'm definitely reading it.
Okay.
So you said
Yeah,
you're working on the second one. Any
I
like
am.
little nuggets that you can give us
Sure.
about what's going
Yeah,
to happen?
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So I will do my again, I'll do my best to try to frame it without giving away too much of the first book or the second. So first I'll just say that it's part of a 3 book deal. So I at least have the 3 books coming out through the publisher, which is fantastic. If they let me, I would take this series into book 7, 8, 9. Like I have the full outline of what happens. So that would be a real privilege to write and really amazing. The sequel, currently hard at work on it. the main theme of the first book, just to juxtapose it with the sequel. So the main theme of the first book, as we've discussed, is coming into your own identity, and feeling empowered by your own identity. And Arthur feeling empowered with his Jewish identity. Then the second book becomes a question of, okay, we're going to grapple with some heavy themes about, well, what does it mean to be Jewish in terms of who isn't and who is Jewish? Who gets to decide who is and isn't Jewish? You mentioned before the matrilineal lineage, right? The way that a Jewish person is determined is according to traditional doctrine, their mother's Jewish, therefore they're Jewish. Well, there's a lot of exceptions to that in the Jewish world. And there's also an entire range of Jewish experience, like I mentioned before, the Beta Israel. These are African Jews. You have, of course, European Jews. You have Middle Eastern Jews. They're all over the world because of the diaspora. Who gets to decide what it means to be Jewish and and who isn't a Jew? And then for the people who think they can make that decision for other people, where do they get that logic from, and how can that be harmful to the Jewish community, right? And it's really a broad conversation about the inclusivity of the entire Jewish world.
Interesting. So,
Yeah.
and are we seeing new, for lack of a better terms, adversaries or new bad guys in each novel that he has to deal with?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I should start by just giving, because I realize now I didn't give a synopsis of the villains in the first book. So in the first book, Arthur goes on this hero's journey, and his antagonist is this ancient demonic evil named Egrat, daughter of Malat. She's known in Jewish folklore. She is trying to resurrect Samael, who that might be a name you're familiar with as a lover of witches, and this kind of occult tradition. The left hand of God, this kind of archdemon. But Egrat herself is only summoned because a human woman named Rivka, a former Hasidic Jew, she lost her husband to an exorcism. And in an attempt to regain him back and claim him from the dead, she has summoned this demon to find certain objects to resurrect him. So you have Arthur on his journey of self-discovery. Meanwhile, Rivka's over here, and she's like this very darkness surrounds her. She's a very complicated character, and you're on her journey as well, as a supplement to Arthur's.
Yeah, so it sounds like the antagonist is unleashed into the world and probably doing bad things, right?
Well, I without spoiling too much, Samael. Yes, we're going to see Samael later in the series for sure.
Okay.
In the second book, though, going along with that theme of inclusivity, what does it mean to be a Jew, right? We have another archdemon from folklore, who is Asmodeus. And he, in my iteration of him, he is half Jewish, but he projects and he says, I'm going to overcompensate for my feelings of inferiority by suggesting that actually Jews are, there should only be pure Jews. There should be no half Jews. There should be, this is what it means to be a Jew. He keeps what it means to be a Jew very boxed in. And he wants to essentially, I'm going to get dark with my language here because he's a dark character, but he wants to purify the Jewish world effectively. So we get into some real dark stuff here. And of course, it comes into play. We have so many characters in the novel who are either half Jewish, who are Jewish from a more marginalized lineage or what have you. And we have an antagonist who basically wants to, purify the Jewish bloodlines, so to speak. So it's a very heavy, very dark second volume that I've cracked into.
Well, I think that's pretty appropriate for the second volume. You have to go pretty dark before, like, the third one, you're like, have all the light at the end of the tunnel, right?
Yeah, hopefully, for sure. Although, I don't know. Let me tell you, the way it's looking, book 3 might even be even darker. We'll see. I just find that, like, when I say dark, I don't necessarily mean that we're going to see this graphic violence, because I don't think you necessarily need it. I'm using dark in the sense of just these themes of discrimination. I mean, let's just call it what it is: discrimination, radical thought about racial identity and racial and ethnic identity and stuff. These are, unfortunately, I hate to say it, but these are themes that are spiraling in our world today. They're kind of made a resurgence And I really wanted to make a commentary on that with the sequel. So that's where my mind went.
Well, I think that's a great thing to do, especially in fantasy books. It can be like a really good way to explore those things without like being in someone's face about it, right? Like saying,
Right.
hey, I'm putting this in front of you. How does this look or feel to you now that it's like this demon, devil, angel type being who's
Right.
wanting to purify his religious culture or
Yeah.
something, the
Right.
people
Right.
that he's calling in this box, right? So
Right.
how does that
Right.
feel? I think it's a safe way to explore a lot of those themes.
Yeah, and to your point, fantasy is a safe way to explore a lot of those themes, right? Not just the stuff we're talking about today, but there's so much. There, I was watching a video essay a few weeks ago about A Court of Thorns and Roses and romanticy, and why it has been such a bombshell for people, such a huge new part of the industry. And I think it's because the fantasy kind of allows for that escape and the ability to kind of probe your own desires and your own identity in safe ways. That's the power of fantastical literature, right? So yeah, it's absolutely, and I've found through writing it, this sequel, that it's been an amazing place to just kind of pour things into the page and rebuke them and then argue with them, and it's all myself, and it's fiction, so it's totally safe, you
So
know.
did you convince yourself to go to the bright side?
Yeah, well, it's yeah. I mean, I'd like to think that I never for one second agreed with my villain here for the sequel novel, but I will say that for any character that you're writing, what you need to do is you need to get in their head and you need to kind of understand where they're coming from. And so there was that part of the process where I did kind of slip into if you're going to think this way, why do you think it? And you kind of have to allow yourself to, for the character's sake, understand where they're coming from first before you can deconstruct them and rebuke them in the story, because
Right.
and ultimately that's such an empowering feeling in its own right.
So do you think you'll ever, I mean, it sounds like you've already given your antagonist some backstories of why they
Yeah.
may be thinking this way. Do you think you'll ever like go back further and do like a prequel of these villains?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Like so there's a few things about that. First, absolutely. Doing a prequel would be fantastic because the Sanhedrin have so many thousands of years of history and I'm starting in modern times,
Mhm.
that you could jump into any part of the historical timeline of the Sanhedrin, and there's a story, right? You could write of a demon Sanhedrin story during the Inquisition. You could write a demon fantasy story with the Sanhedrin during the Jewish revolt against Rome. So that would be amazing. I also have a vision. I want this story to be empowering for the Jewish community, and it would be amazing if Jewish readers, continue to enjoy it, and they say, "Hey, listen, like I'm Indian and Jewish, I'm Ethiopian and Jewish, I'm descended from crypto Jews who fled to Latin America." It'd be so amazing if they contributed stories, and I have this vision of an anthology, and they could write whatever story they want along the entire spectrum and history of the Jewish world, and we could put it together in an anthology series. That would be such a joy for me. Like, so just to concentrate all of that wonderful storytelling.
Well, I think you're the person to do it because I think a lot of people would be attracted to your energy, so and your message.
Great,
And
great. Thank you.
I'm thinking it should be a movie like Black Panther too.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Right, like, come on, we got Black Panther. Where's the Jewish Panther? You know what I mean?
Definitely. Well, I
Maybe,
don't
maybe it
know.
wouldn't be maybe it wouldn't be Jewish Panther.
Yeah, yeah. Well, they wouldn't turn into a panther, but maybe
Right. Yeah.
something, right?
Maybe something. There's something there. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Just a
But
superhero version.
the superhero version, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. We'll see. You know what? Whatever it may come is what may come. I'd be great. I'd be super excited if anything ever happened with Hollywood. Of course, that'd be sick. That'd be awesome.
Very
And I
cool.
already have some fan cast in my head.
Oh, very cool. Just at least a cool costume, right?
Oh, absolutely, 100%. Especially with some of the angels in there,
Mm,
like rings for heads and stuff, like classical biblical representations. Yeah, it'd be great.
that would be neat. That would be very
Yeah,
cool.
yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, because I can imagine like right behind them and with the wings.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so in the Talmudic tradition, right, of the wider Jewish text of the Talmud, there's commentary on these angels. What do they look like? We have the angels in the Bible. Like, what do they look like? And there's some thought that they have these rings, and on these rings are eyes and like many eyes, and it looks really, really cool for screen. It'd be sick.
Interesting. I will have to look that up because I haven't heard of those.
Yeah. If you type in biblically accurate angels on Google, it's going to be one of the first things that comes up. It's like, whoa, it's like some trippy depictions.
Okay, well, good. Thank you for that. I will definitely look it up because I have, like I said, I have my my witches that were formed by the creator, and then I wrote fairies that were also formed by the creator, sort of for the same purpose.
Ooh.
And and they question a lot of the same things because some of their adversaries are like, sometimes they're the witches and sometimes, well, definitely vampires, because supposedly vampires came from the demons, right? But then of course, as they progress and get into the modern world, they're like, is this really right? Is every one of these vampires bad? Anyway, so a little bit of the same themes. So
ooh, you got an entire cosmology.
Yeah,
I love it.
We have many characters there. So.
Oh, hells yeah. All right, we got vampires and fairies in the same world. Let's do it. I love it. That's great.
Definitely. But I'm definitely going to look up your book. So tell me how I can find it as well as how everybody else can find it.
Absolutely. So it's wherever books are sold. It's the Sanhedrin Chronicles. I believe it's on discount now on Amazon. But again, where you can find it on Barnes and Noble, Amazon, Thrift Books, Walmart, wherever you get it, it's there. And if you want to keep up with me, because I also put out some content just to what's on the top of my mind, I put it out there. J.S. Gold Author at Instagram or on TikTok. And of course, I also have a Substack. I feel like every author needs to have a Substack. It's what it feels like. So my Substack is also JS Gold Author. I try to come out with essays once a month. Although when you're in the middle of a teaching school year, it's sometimes hard, but I try to do once a month for essays.
Fun. I was like, we didn't even get how you started writing, but we are going to wrap up because there was so much to talk about your books. And
of course,
when you publish your next book, you will come back and tell us more about your history, maybe. So
100%. Well, we can do an entire writing deep dive. You got it.
Okay, that sounds good. Well, thank you so much, Jeremy. J.S. Gold Author, writes Jewish fantasy and Sanhedrin Chronicles. Thank you again, and we'll have you back soon.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Finding the Magic podcast. I'm your host, author and podcaster Tricia Copeland, and I love getting behind the scenes. If you like the podcast, make sure to subscribe and stop in each week to discover new authors and books. Thanks for listening, and until next time, keep finding the magic.